There is a place of eternal fire, of endless screaming, of souls writhing in agony for crimes committed in a single human lifetime. You were told about it as a child, maybe in church, maybe in Sunday school, maybe whispered to you by someone who loved you and meant it as a warning. Hell, the most powerful weapon ever invented, not a sword, not a cannon, not a bomb, a story. And today, we are going to follow that story all the way back to where it began. Not in scripture, not in the mouth of a prophet, but in the cold, calculated minds of men who understood one thing above all else. Fear is the most profitable currency in human history. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear changes everything you thought you knew. Let us begin at the beginning, not the beginning the church wants you to know about, but the real beginning. Thousands of years before a single word of the Bible was written, before Rome was an empire, before Christianity was even a whisper on the wind, human beings were already asking the question that has haunted every civilization since the first fire was lit. What happens when we die? And what they imagined was not hell, not even close. The ancient Sumerians believed in a place called the Kur, a shadowy underworld, not of punishment but of stillness, a gray, quiet realm where all souls went, regardless of how they had lived. The good and the wicked, side by side in eternal twilight, no flames, no screaming, no devil with a pitchfork, just silence. The ancient Egyptians had their own vision. The Duat, the underworld of Osiris, was a place of judgment, yes, but it was also a place of beauty. The soul traveled through 12 gates, and if the heart was found pure, if it weighed no heavier than a single feather, the soul was welcomed into the field of reeds, an eternal paradise, and if the heart was heavy, it was devoured by Amit, the beast, and the soul simply ceased to exist. Not eternal torture, cessation. The Greeks believed in Hades, a dim, colorless realm, not of fire, but of forgetting. Even Tartarus, the deepest pit of Greek mythology, was reserved for the Titans, for gods, not ordinary mortals. So here's the first thing you need to understand. The concept of hell as a place of eternal fiery punishment for ordinary human beings did not exist in the ancient world. It was invented, constructed, engineered. And we are going to find out exactly who built it and why. If you go back to the original Hebrew texts, before translation, before politics, before Rome got its hands on the scripture, you will find a word, Sheol. Sheol appears over 60 times in the Old Testament, and it means, quite simply, the grave, the pit, the place where all the dead go, not the wicked, not sinners, all the dead. In the book of Ecclesiastes, the writer says plainly, "For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing, no fire, no torment, no eternal punishment." So what happened? How did Sheol, a quiet Hebrew grave, transform into the roaring inferno of Christian theology? The answer lies in two places most people never look: translation and politics. When the Hebrew scriptures were translated into Greek around 250 BCE, Sheol was rendered as Hades. Already a different concept, already carrying different cultural weight. Then came the New Testament, and a new word appeared: Gehenna. Gehenna was not a mythological place, it was a real location. A valley just outside Jerusalem, called the Valley of Hinnom, where garbage was burned. It smoldered constantly. It smelled of smoke and rot. When Jesus, or the writers speaking in his voice, used the word Gehenna, they were invoking a real, physical, local image, a burning garbage heap, not a cosmic eternal prison. But when Rome translated the Greek into Latin, in what became the Vulgate Bible, Gehenna became Infernus, hell, and a concept was born. Now we arrive at the question that changes everything. Why? Why would the most powerful institution in Western history transform a garbage dump into a cosmic realm of eternal torment? The answer is not theological. It is economic. It is political. It is the oldest game in human civilization, and the Catholic Church played it with breathtaking skill. Rome understood something fundamental about power. People who are afraid obey. When Christianity emerged, it was radical, egalitarian, deeply subversive. It drew the poor, the enslaved, the marginalized. It said something dangerous: every soul matters equally. Rome tried to crush it. 3 centuries of persecution, lions, crosses, fire. It didn't work. So in 312 CE, the Emperor Constantine claimed a vision of the Christian cross in the sky and converted. And everything changed. Because now, Christianity was not a movement of the poor. It was the religion of empire. An empire needed hell. In 325 CE, Constantine called together bishops from across the Christian world to a city called Nicaea. The stated purpose was theological, but let us be honest about what was really happening. Constantine was not a theologian. He was a general, a politician, a man who had built his empire on the bodies of his enemies. He needed a unified religion because a unified religion meant a unified empire. At Nicaea, the assembled bishops decided what Christianity was. They voted on which texts were sacred and which were heresy. They drew the lines of orthodoxy. And the doctrine they codified served empire perfectly: obey the church or burn forever. This was not an accident. This was a design decision. The bishops who disagreed, the Gnostics, the followers of Arius, were condemned. Their books were burned. Their communities scattered. History is written by the victors, and the victors needed hell. Because hell answered a question that empire always struggles with. What do you do with people who disobey you in secret? A soldier can be executed. A criminal can be imprisoned. But a thought, a quiet heresy held in the private heart? You cannot imprison a thought, but you can threaten it with eternity. In 1320, a poet named Dante Alighieri published the Divine Comedy. What he described was not vague theological fire. It was architecture, 9 circles of hell, each precisely engineered to punish a specific sin. The lustful blown about by eternal winds, the gluttonous wallowing in endless filth, the violent submerged in rivers of boiling blood, and crucially, Dante populated his hell with real people, political enemies, former popes. The Divine Comedy was the most sophisticated piece of propaganda ever written. The church understood this, which is why they endorsed it, spread it, painted it on cathedral walls across Europe. They commissioned Hieronymus Bosch, Fra Angelico, Michelangelo, the greatest artists of the age, paid by the church to make the most horrifying visions of torment the human mind could conceive. And then they hung those paintings where everyone could see them, in churches. This was not art for art's sake. This was advertising. Now we follow the money, because there is always money. In the medieval Catholic Church, salvation was not free. Let that sink in for a moment. The church that preached grace, that taught that Christ died so sins could be forgiven, charged for it. Not metaphorically, literally, with receipts. They were called indulgences. Purgatory itself appeared in doctrine in 1274, a middle place. And the church sold certificates that shortened that suffering. The richer you were, the less your loved ones suffered after death. Pope Leo X, who needed funds to rebuild St. Peter's Basilica, sent agents to sell indulgences on an industrial scale. One agent, Johann Tetzel, became famous for a slogan: as soon as the coin in the coffer rings, the soul from purgatory springs. Pay the church. Save your dead. Hell and purgatory were not just theological doctrines. They were the product. Fear was the marketing. In 1517, a German monk named Martin Luther nailed a list of arguments to the door of a church in Wittenberg, 95 theses, a challenge to the sale of indulgences. Luther was not an atheist. He was a devout man who believed the church had turned the grace of God into a commodity, had built an empire on the fear of hell. He was right, and the church's response tells you everything. They threatened him with hell. When you control hell, you control the conversation. But Luther kept talking, and the machine began to crack. In 1209, Pope Innocent III launched the Albigensian Crusade, a military campaign against a group of Christians called the Cathars. The Cathars were not pagans, they were Christians who simply believed differently. They rejected the authority of Rome. The Pope declared them heretics, condemned them to hell, and then sent an army to physically send them there. When the papal legate was asked how soldiers should distinguish Cathars from true Catholics, he reportedly said, "Kill them all. God will know his own." Thousands were slaughtered, men, women, children. This is what hell enables. When you can declare your enemy eternally damned, you remove their humanity. You make their destruction not just permissible, but righteous. The Inquisition operated on the same logic. Torture was officially sanctioned by Pope Innocent IV in 1252, and burning at the stake was framed not as cruelty, but as mercy. Because burning the body, they claimed, purified the soul. They burned people alive and called it kindness. When you own the afterlife, you own everything. The Christian hell did not emerge from a vacuum. They borrowed it. The Zoroastrian religion, which emerged in ancient Persia, was one of the first to develop a genuinely dualistic cosmology, a universe divided between light and darkness, good and evil, and a final judgment in which the wicked were cast into a house of lies. Sound familiar? Zoroastrianism directly influenced Jewish theology. Scholars trace numerous concepts, including Satan, angels, resurrection, and final judgment, directly to Zoroastrian influence. The mystery religions had underworld traditions, but every other tradition allowed for eventual release. The church removed the escape hatch, because a hell you might eventually leave is not nearly as frightening as a hell that lasts forever. And frightened people pay. Frightened people obey. Frightened people do not ask questions. Here is what they burned. Among the texts destroyed by the early church were the Gnostic Gospels, discovered in 1945 at Nag Hammadi in Egypt, hidden in a sealed jar, preserved for nearly 2,000 years. The Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Truth. What did these texts say about hell? Almost nothing. The Gnostic tradition was interested in gnosis, direct knowledge, personal encounter with the divine. The God of the Gnostics was not a judge waiting to condemn you. The God of the Gnostics was a light, waiting to be recognized within you. Because a Christianity that does not need priests, does not need institutional mediation between the human soul and God, is a Christianity that generates no revenue, commands no armies, and builds no empires. The church did not burn these texts because they were dangerous to God. They burned them because they were dangerous to the church. You might think this is ancient history. You would be wrong. The same mechanism operates today, in mega-churches with billion-dollar budgets, in television ministries that raise hundreds of millions from people who can barely pay their bills. The medieval paintings of demons have been replaced by slick production, emotional music, carefully crafted sermons designed by experts who understand exactly which psychological triggers produce generosity or burn. The global religious economy was estimated at over $1.2 trillion annually. And at the foundation of all of it, the invisible infrastructure on which this entire economy rests, is a story about fire. A story that was never in the original texts. They invented the disease, and then they sold the cure. Now, I want to speak directly to you, because this is not just history. This is personal. If you were raised in a tradition that used hell as a tool, if you were told as a child that questioning meant damnation, if you have carried fear in your body, fear planted there by someone who called it love, you need to hear this. That fear was not given to you by God. It was given to you by an institution with a power structure, with a vested interest in your compliance. The mystics of every tradition, the ones who actually went deep, they did not come back with reports of hell. They came back with peace, with the radical, destabilizing, liberating sense that the universe is not a courtroom, that you are not a defendant, that the fire below was always a story told by those above. The ancient Egyptians weighed the heart against a feather, not against a doctrine, not against a membership fee, not against loyalty to an institution, against a feather. The question was simply, did you live lightly? Did you love honestly? Did you do more good than harm? That was the whole of it. And maybe that is still the whole of it. You have been watching Unmasking the Gods. And if this video has stirred something in you, you are not alone in pulling it. Millions of people are waking up to the same realization, that the stories we were handed were not neutral. They were architecture, built by specific people for specific purposes. And you have every right to examine the blueprints. Subscribe, leave a comment, and remember, the gods were never what they told you, but what they actually are is worth everything.